Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to share with you a terrifying experience that I never thought I'd speak of again. Imagine taking on what seems like an easy job, house sitting for a family while they're away, feeding the pets, and enjoying a quiet space all to yourself. But as the nights passed, I realized something sinister was lurking in those dark rooms, strange sounds from the basement, eerie lights turning on by themselves, and the unsettling feeling that someone, or something, was watching every move I made. By the time the family returned, I was so shaken that I swore never to set foot in that house again. Buckle up, turn off the lights, and join me as I take you through the haunting nights of my final house-sitting job. When I was in college, I used to house sit for a certain family every year while they went on their 2-week vacation. I had already experienced some unsettling moments in their home, but none of those compared to what finally convinced me to quit. At the time, I was in my early 20s and juggling many small jobs to pay bills. House sitting was one way I earned extra money. This family had 4 cats, very friendly and well-behaved, and they paid me well. So despite the creepy vibe I sometimes got, I kept going back. They left for their 2-week trip overseas, telling me they would have no cell service. They gave me instructions to call the police or contact their relatives in case of emergencies. I settled into the guest bedroom, as usual, and everything seemed normal for the first few days. I went to my college classes from their place, which was conveniently near campus. Not having to pay for parking or commute was great. But after a few nights, things began to change. My boyfriend at the time came over for dinner, which he often did when I house sat, because he knew I got nervous alone in that big, quiet home. We hung out in the guest bedroom, ate, and watched TV. Around midnight, he said he needed to go home. Usually, he would stay over with me, but that night he insisted he had a bad feeling and told me I should come back with him. I shrugged it off, saying I'd be fine, reminding him that the house had a security system and the cats were with me. He kept trying to convince me to leave, but I wouldn't budge. Finally, he left reluctantly. I locked all the doors and windows, turned on the security alarm, then climbed into bed. Right away, the TV started turning on by itself. I figured maybe I'd bumped the remote, but when I checked, the remote was on the nightstand. I turned the TV off, it turned itself back on. Worse, it was flickering to a strange black and white screen with no signal. Over and over, I switched it off, and it turned on again. It scared me enough that I finally unplugged the TV. I tried to calm myself by telling myself it was just a wiring glitch because the home had been recently renovated. Even though the weirdness shook me up, it wasn't enough to make me leave. I decided to go sleep on the couch instead and ended up dozing off. The next evening, my boyfriend came back. I told him what happened, and he said again that I should go home. We watched a movie in the living room while eating dinner. The house layout is important here. The place has 2 floors, but the lower level is a finished basement with a spare room. The stairs leading down there are old and super creaky. The 4 cats love to wander around but usually stay close to humans without letting you hold them. One cat, the youngest, was smaller and slightly more active than the others. While we watched our movie, I heard a sound from the basement that made my blood run cold. It sounded like a baby crying. My boyfriend gave me this shocked look. Like, "Did you hear that too?" I remembered from my shelter job that cats can sometimes sound like crying babies, especially when they're upset. I counted the cats around us and realized the youngest one was missing. So, I went downstairs to look for him, discovering he had somehow shut himself in the spare room. He meowed pitifully, sounding like a crying infant. Relieved, I took him back upstairs, and we continued our evening. Soon it was time to feed the cats, so we paused our movie. The kitchen was right above the basement. Normally, after eating, the cats either nap in the master bedroom or the teens' room, both of which smell like their owners. That was their standard routine. They always left the kitchen right after mealtime. So we weren't surprised not to see them around while we finished the movie. But as we ate our own dinner in the kitchen, we heard what sounded like crying from the basement again. Only this time it was louder and sharper. My boyfriend looked uneasy, and I forced a brave face, saying, "I'll check on the cat again." I headed downstairs, turning on the lights and calling the cat's name. I could hear that crying get louder. But the moment I reached the bottom, it stopped. I searched the spare room, under couches, behind furniture, no cat. He wasn't there at all. Panic hit me. My heart pounded so hard that I sprinted back upstairs. When I entered the kitchen, I saw a look of horror on my boyfriend's face. All 4 cats were standing with him, looking calm and normal. He said the cats had just walked in from the bedrooms. None of them had even been downstairs. That was it. I packed my things without a word, and we left the house immediately. For the remaining week of their vacation, I only returned once a day to feed the cats and clean their litter. I knew I was ignoring their strict feeding schedule, but I didn't care. At this point, I just wanted to get it over with. After locking up on the last day, I dropped the keys in the spot the owners had asked me to. Then, I texted them, saying it would be my final time house sitting. There had been too many strange incidents, and this last one was enough to scare me away forever. On my drive home, I called my sibling. They admitted they also had experienced weird happenings in that house before but never told me, because they knew I needed the money. This only made me feel worse. To this day, I still remember every detail of that haunting. Cat-like crying from the basement, and it sends chills down my spine. I'm now done with that house for good, and honestly, I should have quit a long time ago.